I put them all together, insert, cause I wanna have worth. Working hella hard till they put me in the dirt. Gonna go far, man, listen to my words. Gonna be a star, man, life's like a blur. When you're working this hard, till you get what you deserve. Yeah, I ain't taking a backseat, I'm passing anybody else who is rapping. I'm nasty, ain't nobody able to catch me. They gasping, they cannot compare, they can't match me. I'm at half speed, I got your girl and she laughing and dancing, hanging on my butt, she asking to crash with me, smash with me. She savage, she wants cash money, and she knows that I live lavishly. I wanna live, I'm cold inside. Gave all I have just to feel alive. I fight to live, I fight to strive. One day I'll have what I want. I want the whole world in the palm of my hand. I got a plan, I'm the man. Now I'm teaching the game, a veteran, better than anybody else who tests me. I'm
Michel-Ange a dit « J'ai vu un ange dans le marbre et j'ai seulement ciselé jusqu'à l'en libérer. » Et tout comme il le dit, nous sommes nombreux aujourd'hui à travailler sur le marbre. Sacrifier tout sur son chemin pour réaliser son rêve. Le voyage n'est pas pour les cœurs fragiles. En 2019, Chovy affronte Faker en BO5 pour la toute première fois.
페이커 선수에 대한 첫인상은 일단 기본기도 되게 좋았는데 계속 끊임없이 심리전을 거는 게 인상적이었어요.
Mais ne parvient pas à le vaincre.
계속 뭐가 문제였을까 생각하게 되더라고요. 내가 못해서 졌다기보단 상대가 잘하는 게 많았고, 그래서 이기려면 그 잘하는 상대보다 더 잘해야 한다고 생각을 했던 것 같아요.
페이커 선수를 이겨야만 최고가 될 자격이 주어진다고 생각을 합니다.
초비 선수가 굉장히 뛰어난 선수이기 때문에 같이 맞붙는 게 굉장히 저에게 있어서 재밌고 스스로도 많이 배우고 성장할 수 있는 것 같습니다.
En 2022, Chovy a enfin pris le dessus.
제가 처음 우승했을 때가 2년 전이었는데요. 했던 말이 말도 안 돼라고 하고 우승을 했던 걸로 기억하는데 그만큼 마음의 짐이 많이 덜어진 것 같아요.
Genji continua de gagner à domicile. Ils étaient imparables.
처음 우승했을 때 그때 당시 목표가 리그 우승을 해보는 거였는데 데뷔 첫 시즌 만에 이룰 수 있게 돼서 너무 좋았던 것 같아요.
2022, 2023 et 2024. Genji a battu T1 encore et encore quand cela comptait le plus.
이제 첫 우승을 이제 T1 상대로 우승을 해가지고 감정이 북받쳤던 것 같습니다.
결승에서 많이 진 후에는 저희가 많이 부족한가 라는 생각도 들게 되었던 것 같고 실망도 많이 했었던 것 같습니다.
여기는 LCK가 아니고 월즈이고 월즈는 T1에게 적합한 무대라고 생각합니다.
챔피언으로 참가했고 챔피언으로 떠날 계획입니다.
À ce jour, 53 victoires pour Faker, 52 victoires victoire, un sentiment d'inachevé persiste au fond de son cœur. Le rêve d'être champion du monde. Imposant. Et le fardeau. Pour l'un, le fardeau de rester au sommet. Pour l'autre, le fardeau d'atteindre le sommet.
Genji was pushed to the limit. They were pushed to the edge, but they were built for these situations. They were built for victory. They were built to win, and they will do just that.
페이커 선수 새로운 미래를 열겠습니다.
초비 선수, 미래를 원한다면 증명하세요.
무거운 왕관의 목에 함께 짊어지겠습니다.
저희가 새로운 세대입니다.
T1은 과거, 현재, 그리고 미래입니다.
Bonjour Paris! Bienvenue à l'Adidas Arena pour la dernière demi-finale de 2024 des mondiaux de League of Legends! Aujourd'hui, au bout du chemin, une place à Londres, aux côtés de Bilibili, à se présenter devant vous, les deux derniers représentants de la Corée. D'un côté, champion du MSI, en quête du titre ultime. Et de l'autre, 4 fois champion du monde, défendant leur couronne. Alors, mesdames et messieurs, pour vos deux équipes, Genji et T1! Dans la jungle
semi-finals. I'm Atlas, as usual. I'm joined by Chronicler, but we're also getting to welcome our friend Andrew Vedius Day to the LCK, which is absolutely fantastic. We're still at Worlds, aren't we? We're still at Worlds.
Yeah.
We've, of course, got a little bit of experience with this particular matchup, but there are a lot of very critical changes moving into this best of 5.
I mean, it's Worlds. It's Worlds. that really summarizes it.
That's like 98%
Okay,
of the changes, yeah.
I was like, wait, there were changes you didn't tell me about?
Yeah, throwing us up there, Atlas.
It was such an emotional teaser, right?
Oh,
I
God,
mean, we were
yeah.
all getting choked up watching the. I mean, there's so much on the line. Under the banner of Gen G, this is a barrier that this organization hasn't been able to cross, and now they face across T1, the reigning world champions. I mean, what an accomplishment it would be to beat them on what feels like T1's home ground here at Worlds.
And I feel like this weird combination of relieved today, but also nervous, because no matter what happens in this matchup, we're going to have an incredible finals.
Oh,
I think the stories are just writing themselves for either team here. The main thing is, can we get a banger best of 5? And I think most signs are pointing to yes. And we're going to jump into the draft here to start this one off. And already, things are going pretty similarly to what we were expecting, except for maybe the Nidalee first ban to come through here from T1 to deny that from Canyon.
No surprises, T1 taking away the lessons here. And the real question is, what happens to Yone? T1 is, I think, expecting Gen G to ban it here. The Smolder was their #1 answer that we saw them pull out. And generally, outside of that, under no circumstances have teams be allowed to get that Yone.
And the Ashe is the other thing that's such an incredibly high priority. With that Kalista ban, it is important, but I think a trade of Yone and Ashe is going to be how we start this best of 5. And Zeus is going to say, well, I might play it, but it's probably my buddy in the mid lane.
That's the beauty of this pick for T1. It is a flex between top and mids. We'll see what T1 do with it later on, as the Skarner looking to be the priority for Canyon. We'll see if they look to pair that alongside the Ashe, which you already mentioned, Atlas. The Rumble is something else to take into consideration. Yone plus Rumble is such a terrifying combo, and there are so many junglers that can help facilitate it as well. Sejuani is one that potentially comes to mind to really enable that mid lane matchup, as the Skarner locked in for Canyon.
And Canyon, obviously, we'd all love to see him on carries, but Skarner, definitely the strongest jungler currently on the patch, with the exception of that Nidalee that was banned away early on. Now, Gen G knew 100% that this Yone was going to get picked up. We've seen teams do this, particularly in best of 5 in the first game, give it up. What is their answer going to be? I was actually expecting the Ashe to get picked up here early on, because it has been such an insane prio pick. It doesn't look like that's going to be the case, so T1 getting Yone and Ashe right here on blue
Ashe
side.
for a nut. I'm actually very surprised, because T1 had Sejuani Rumble just straight up and available for them. That top side has been so incredibly strong, and it fits their playstyle so incredibly well. But what this does is it hides where that Yone is going. It opens up the board and gives this bottom lane a whole lot of power.
Is it the Blitzcrank to come out here? So. Because if they don't pick it here, I do think it's going to get taken away. Is Chovy going to get his hands on the sides here?
They're going for a bruiser top side on the side of Gen G, looking to get down and dirty and look to try and scrap against T1. We saw a similar composition from T1 against Top Esports in their first game, where they were able to find great success, the key difference being a Renekton coming through from the side of Keen. Now we turn our attention to that jungle role. Gen G, what are they going to ban away? The Sejuani, we already talked extensively about it as an option. That's going to be the first one removed. Do they want to consider AP threats? The Blitzcrank also discussing that. Lahan's very well known for his Blitzcrank. They're not going to allow him to have that one. Now you kind of move into uncharted territory. Do you also consider Rakan something worth taking away?
Yeah, I think Rakan's a really important one. Do they just ban the Rumble? Because it's still very, very strong, opens the doors for a lot more 80 heavy compositions as well. Certainly a lot of things on Gen G's mind is what they could be taking away here.
The benefit here for Gen G is that they will know where this Yone is going before they lock in their final pick. So we'll see, gives them a little bit more leeway. I imagine Pace is going to be picking up an 80 carry here on R4. As the Rumble does get taken away, Gen G also still saying we don't know where this Yone is going. We haven't seen it for Zeus in the top lane in a while, but given his history, wouldn't be no surprise. The Ezreal going to get taken away. Extremely self-sufficient pick. That is very hard to punish, and I think the range, so you don't have to interact too much with the Ashe lane, quite big as well. What is Pace going to lock in here to go with this bruiser style? because it's really hard to find something that can play into the Ashe Renata, and might be a lane swap on the cards.
Well, I was going to say my instincts are something along the lines of Kai'Sa, but Pei's no stranger to the Ziggs. It looks like that's going to be the direction, the safe wave clear. And I mean, you look at this top side from Gen.G, wave clear is definitely something that they're lacking, but I feel like Ziggs can be very self-sufficient, especially if Lahans wants to play an engaged support. And I think that it complements the composition nicely. T1 now considering what they're going to put in the jungle.
A lot of different considerations.
A lot of potential options being flicked through by Gumayusi, teasing the crowd a little bit, but it is Ona. We're at Worlds, and his Vi is going to be the option.
Gonna have to be that. Oh, the Gragas lock-in as well. Also kind of keeps things up in the air as far as where these two champions are going. Of course, Zeus is an incredible Gragas player just in general, so it's not likely to go to Faker, but he's played it a few times.
Yeah, there was that random 3 weeks where everyone in the LCK was pranked into thinking Gragas mid was good.
Because Faker was just winning on it,
It wasn't. It was all a psych out. This used to be a really good matchup for specifically tank Gragas. With Grass, back when his sustain was a lot better, you could just completely stonewall the Renekton. He never really was able to get shoved. I do imagine, though, looking at the damage profile for T1, this is going to be the full AP variety, so maybe a little bit more carry or shutdown potential early on here for Gen.G, but they are really heavy on the AP, and that's something that I do think we have seen be a problem for them before.
I mean, that's certainly true. The advantage is that Yone is a champion that very rarely builds things like the Merc Treads. He's very locked in his typical itemization build, along with the Gragas as well, who you kind of expect to go more towards that AP direction. I feel like that they should be fine. I think the biggest thing for Gen.G is being able to play through that first item spike. When you have this strong, skirmish-heavy top side in Renekton, Skarner, Sylas, you're going to be looking to fight around Herald, fight for those early dragons. You want to draw T1 into those early skirmishes before they have that opportunity to scale. And I think that it's going to be crucial for Gen.G to kind of force T1 into their game.
Now that we also know for a fact that this Yone is going to Faker. Faker, not one of our top tier Yones, but Zeka, PDD, Chovy, all right ahead of him. So this is a big test for him as well. Being able to perform on this pick would really throw a wrench into, I think, the drafting plans for Gen.G, who take a big gamble here with this Game 1 draft.
And Faker has found success and had some iffy moments on that Yone just in general. We saw Xiaohu not really pass that test yesterday. We'll see whether Faker, our other veteran mid laner, as far as our semifinals matchups are concerned, is going to be able to handle it. I don't think the GOAT's going to struggle too much. I think it's about how both of these drafts are going to function when we actually get into some of these brawls. But ladies and gentlemen, it is almost the moment that you've been waiting for. Game number 1 in our second semi-final of Worlds 2024 to decide who is going to be meeting BLG in the final. Oh man, already just a little bit of a defensive start. Not going to have those insane level 1s like we did in Game 2 yesterday.
The atmosphere is absolutely electric, and I think back to that spring final, the epic 5-game series that we had.
Where did those 5 games come? I'm still actually confused about where they came from. It shouldn't have happened that way.
I don't think we ever figured it out.
It's a shame that we were robbed in summer of them meeting in the playoffs, and I'm hopeful. Well, we've got them here at Worlds. We get to see this opportunity.
Better late than never, eh, Betty?
T1 now setting up for an invade, looking to potentially set up for a swap.
All right, so I was saying that there might not be a swap, but there is. It is immediately spotted. Canyon's just going to move over to his blue side quadrant, so should be okay. Keen also going to be rotating immediately, getting the idea that there is going to be a potential lane swap in the air. Does make a fair bit of sense, but leaving a Ziggs in a bottom lane by himself is a recipe for plates.
Well, that's the big thing. Ziggs is a champion that even in top lane, because of his passive, you actually do a decent amount even for all the resistances. And if you are in a bot lane, it's going to be even more pronounced. T1, though, looking at the setups here, Zeus actually did go for Grasp, same for the mid laners, but shouldn't come as a surprise there. There's been a lot of Grasp mids throughout the tournament, even seeing it on ranged champions like Smolders, and it looks like Gen.G is going to go for the variety where you do have Lahans just laning together with Chovy or Canyon, starting on the bot side, and looks like just the usual jungle split. Neither jungler able to steal away a camp.
Yep, just some vertical jungling to start things off here as Keen's just doing his best to zone Zeus away from minions. Of course, Gragas in a lane swap is pretty good at it. Teleport from Keen to get him towards that top side of the map. 3 versus 1 could be a little bit dangerous, but having hit level 2, I think he should be all right.
It's actually really nice timing. As he arrives, the minion dies, and he immediately dinks too. So he got enough experience in bot to not be at quite a high risk of a dive. But even with that early attention being paid towards the mid lane, we do see Faker still doing fine. Bot side might be a dive setup here. Zeus is still fairly full health.
All right, let's see whether they can actually make this one work. You can see the barrel has been charged. Doesn't do a whole lot of damage at this point. Level 2 for Zeus does have that body slam. Going to use it immediately onto Canyon. Already down to 50% as Lahens is trying to tank that turret for as long as possible. One more's going to do it, but Pays almost just straight up dead. And Canyon, 2 turret shots, has to flash. And Zeus says, not today, boys. Lahens looking for another option. He flashes the Zenith Blade. Lahens able to walk out of that one, but he's still going to have to flash as Faker comes down to make sure his top laner stays alive.
A colossal blunder on the execution of the dive. Lahens can't connect the E. The tower aggro is mismanaged, and Gen.G are forced to retreat on their first play of the series.
And Gen.G, I think, should count themselves lucky. That could have gone way worse.
Oh, yeah.
The Canyon unintendedly getting the aggro there was the big thing. I think it might have been red buff. He clearly wasn't expecting it. They were looking for the redive. And that moment, bot time for Faker to TP towards the bottom lane. Only good thing for Gen.G is that did give Chovy a little bit of time while he still has a teleport available. But T1 going to be feeling great about that, trading just that flash on Zeus and a TP for multiple summoners from Gen.G.
There were so many instances there where it was very awkward for Zeus because he was one minion off leveling up, but the cannon minion had aggro. Hang on a minute, a play.
Yeah, Lahens Hex flashing in. Not going to find that Zenith Blade either. Good handshake from Carrier, and Keen taking so much damage. Lahens got to hit those if Gen.G is going to find some tempo back in this game.
Wow, Gumayushi's Ash so prevalent, it even causes the screen to freeze.
Yeah.
Lahens 3 for 3 on misses when it comes to the Zenith Blade now. He needs to be able to connect those if he wants to set up plays for his team, but I question a couple nerves feels like coming through here from the side of Gen.G early on.
Lance, known as a joker, but has had some moments. Him and Pays, I think, have throughout the course of this roster often been the most criticized. Has had incredible performances. Think back to that first series against Home Life in summer playoffs, but then also often cited as the reason why they struggled so much in the actual finals. I do want to note the fact that Gen.G has triple teleport bailed them out a little bit because they were able to still catch that top wave, even with Keen being bullied out of that lane. Chovy could TP top, and Keen has now made his way to the mid lane.
Oh, that's very cute. Canyon being able to dodge the Hawk shot there as Chovy rotating back down, spotted on this control ward as Carrier taking some chain lash damage. Chovy should be able to get out of here just fine, no worries. Should be able to dodge some moves, and Faker with his Unbound Soul just going to be able to try and push this wave in. Of course, the luxury of being able to teleport to the top lane is purely because Faker had to use his to get down towards the bottom side, but good handshake going to come in here. Could this be first blood against Chovy? That would be such devastating news for Gen.G. T1 already with a lot of control, 600 gold in the lead, and Faker is really having a good time in this lane despite having to vacate early.
I mean, this matchup is quite favored for the Yone early on just because of how restrained Sylas is as a champion around cooldowns. He just doesn't have them in the early game to effectively trade against a champion like Yone who could just keep spamming that Q. The CS advantage, you rightly said, though, coming from the fact that early TP came through. And Chovy, he's going to be forced back to base very soon. He doesn't want to miss this wave. They're level 6. Faker threatening the potential ult there to try and zone Chovy away from that farm, but he will be able to get the can.
Yeah, level 6 gained as well.
Yeah, and with Keen being pulled around the map, we see that he's actually, even with the fact that he was able to catch that middle wave, he has had to really pay. Whereas Zeus, because he absorbed that early dive, has just been able to catch multiple waves, and I think T1 as a team always look their best when they get to play this aggressive, when the lanes are pushing and they are the ones dictating. As we see the Grubs now being started up as well, would be a really big boom, particularly for Faker that wants to use that pressure in a side lane. Going to be a Drake for Grubs trade. I do think an early Drake for Gen.G is great because obviously looking at the composition, the Renekton is going to lose a lot of value as the game goes on, but Sylas and Ziggs most certainly will not.
Yep. And, ooh, Cask very close to being able to steal that one away. I do like an opportunistic barrel being thrown in as now potential dive towards the top side of the map. Lahens with that Eclipse is trying to tank things up. Doesn't really do a whole lot of work. That is another miss on the Zenith Blade, but also, like you say, the minions are all going to die, so they should be okay at least for another crash.
Keeping my eyes on a potential cross map as both mid laners made their way up towards top. Nice follow there from Chovy. Losing a little bit in terms of experience, but ready for the potential play happening on the top side of the map. Reset now come through for Faker, securing his first 2 items of the game, and we're in a very timid early game. Crucially, though, we talked about those first item spikes for Gen.G. their biggest strength in the early game is the fact that they have Silas, Skarner, Renekton on the top side that I think want to try and leverage this skirmishing power in the early game to try and force these objectives. And as you rightly said, Dragons are going to be a great way to try and force that. Get yourself the second, and then you'll be ready to force a fight around the third, maybe even look to contest the next grubs.
Yeah, and I think that I kind of want to draw out a little bit and have a conversation about what these compositions are trying to do, as another Hawkshot is going to spot Canyon here this time around. Because I'm looking at Gen G and I'm thinking, there is a lot of magic damage here, but also it's solo AD Renekton. So if you're not building armor, then maybe the Crocodile just eats you. Which could become a problem if Keen gets accelerated. And I think that is what's so incredibly important about what you say, playing through that top side, getting those skirmishes. Because right now, I mean, we haven't had a first blood just yet. And I think that Gen G probably hoping that some of that starts a little bit sooner rather than later in their favor.
Gen G have often taken this role in games against T1. It's also something that's important to note. And it's not until we really start to see turrets falling or more impactful objectives go over, right? We talk about Soul Point, we're talking about 6 grubs, possible Herald. And the 6 grubs, I think, is attainable for T1. That alone is not going to be enough. There's a possible trap being set up here. Owner has that ultimate available. But instead, even if you don't actually get anything out of the play, like you're crashing this wave, you're getting the plates, and you're still putting Gen G further behind.
The key difference I think we're seeing in terms of impact in this early game is Carrier. Carrier is really making his presence felt in the mid lane, and remember, Chovy had a CS advantage because of Faker's TP towards the bot side of the map. So Carrier has spent like at least 2 to maybe even 3 minutes of this game just hovering around mid, making it awkward for Chovy to base at the right time, keeping him to stay for that extra minion wave, helping Faker chip away at his HP. And you look at that CS, look at that gold slowly shifting back in Faker's way. You can see 3 plates secured in the mid lane. Meanwhile, Lahens has just been shadowing his AD carry, shadowing Pays, just making sure that, yes, he can get that experience, but he's even behind Carrier when it comes to XP. So with the grub spawning in a minute's time, desperately he needs to get that level 6 to have that ultimate available. And I wonder if Gen G's actually eager to try and force a fight as the grub's now spawning soon.
And it's the opportunity cost for the 2 plays that they tried to go for. The dive was a failure, and then the topside play we tried to set up for Keen, trying to punish this pushing power of the Ashe and Renata, also not really working out. And that not only set Lahens behind, but also started Keen being in a bit of a tough position when it comes to catching these waves. And I do agree, I think Gen G, if they are denied a good fight, things are going to be very tough. Gen G has, again, I think been in this position before, but I do really want to highlight, we say that often, but if you look at their gold stats in the LCK, they weren't getting a lot of kills, but the amount of gold they generated early was actually insane. Like, they were sitting on, I think it was on average like a 1.5k gold lead, and obviously there was a meta that was textbook perfection for them, but it isn't like they were getting into fights without anything to grasp onto. And this game feels like that might be the case as the grubs are going to get started up. You see Gen G is looking to contest. Level 6 has been hit on Lahens.
Yeah.
Is that enough? 4 grubs are definitely going to go to wave T1 here.
Yeah, it's at least 4, but I think it's
the vision
almost guaranteed to be 6. So 5 are going to be going down here at least. Here for T1, no vision up and available at all as Pays can throw a Mega Inferno Bomb if he would like to, but looks like T1 are just going to cut their losses. 5 grubs is pretty good. Canyon going to be able to grab this 6th, potentially. Owner a little bit far away as now could just be a team fight in. Pays doesn't actually get over the wall with that satchel. Could be an important start to this fight as Chovy's teleported in. That's going to be the grub going down, but can they win the fight? Impale comes in, kept into the sweet spot, but the barrel is so good. Still, it's going to be Chovy picking up first blood against Owner, and T1 just not enough damage.
T1, they could have just taken the 5 grubs and left it at that, especially with the teleport coming in from Chovy, but instead they look for the 5v5 and Gen G punch back.
Yeah, I'm surprised that T1 chose to take that, because the thing we've been talking about, right? Renekton in this early game is just, he's just so strong. Ultimate alone is enough to be so durable, a lot of damage. And you can see how the engage was a little disconnected here from T1. It's going to be Owner diving onto the back line, attempting to steal the grub. Chovy on the side, and look at Pays' positioning. Perfectly safe, nice angle. The Ashe arrow gets stolen. Gumayushi really can't do much. While the barrel looks good, the front line dissipates, and T1 is immediately forced to disengage.
Yeah, it was a Dominus Renekton, and he was kind of okay with just slicing and dicing his way around. So even though it looked amazing, didn't quite work out there. So T1, they lose first blood, but they still have a lot of tempo around this map, unless Chovy has something to say about it after he does crash this wave towards the top side. 5 grubs, certainly going to be valuable as the game goes on though, and T1 are looking to also even out the dragon count.
And the kill going to Chovy is a big deal. This Silas, we've seen how hard this champion can snowball when he does get a lead. He's able to very consistently force plays with his catch potential. And it's also something that the Chovy that we saw domestically, I think we've only seen in one game this Worlds, and it was that Game 5 Smolder game. Because his laning stats haven't really been comparable to what we have seen domestically as a trader for turrets.
Well, it's going to be 5 grubs, so T1 do have a fair bit, but Gen.G, I think they're going to be able to cut this one down. Gumushi also in trouble there as a solar flare does get cleansed. Gumushi going to be able to make his way out. I believe that was Gen.G taking it first.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
And so despite the grubs, they're still able to get there with the slight lead they had as far as the turret health. So a bit of extra gold going over to Gen.G, and that's going to very close to even things out here between the two squads.
I mean, we couldn't really ask for more, could we? Dead even game, 13 minutes
Maybe a few more kills, still just as even?
They're coming. Remember, it's game 1 of a best of 5. We have the entree, you know? We're just starting off.
I'm sorry, just a little bit of patience.
Atlas is not a patient man.
I know.
I just wanted to yell.
I agree with you,
The
Veddy.
main course is on its way. I think what was smart there from Gen.G is, I mean, they had to reset after the grubs. The problem is the dragon was spawning relatively soon, so T1 already back out onto the map in a position to secure that. Gen.G leveraged the fact that they had that time advantage to secure that first tower. So ultimately an even trade. The only problem for Gen.G is T1 can kind of sack the next dragon if they want to without much of a problem, and they can continue to scale up. Blade of the Ruin King is very close to being completed for Faker, and that is such a massive item spike for T1 that they're definitely going to be waiting to try and secure.
Now Zayas pushing another wave towards this top lane and does have quite a few friends around. Looks like Gen.G did have a bit of information as to who was coming. So Canyon going to be rotating up. Pays also there, Mega Inferno Bomb in hand. The siege could be a little bit dangerous. Good handshake for the disengage as Canyon looking for an opportunity. Might be able to get in there, throwing some rocks around as you can see. Not going to go for any stuns or anything like that just yet. T1 are just going to be allowed to back away.
Crucially, look at Faker going back to base. He should have enough money for Blade of the Ruin King. This means that T1 are saying, we don't want to fight yet. It's not worth it. They're not going to overstay their welcome. The TP
Kraken as well.
The question is this TP going to be up in time to contest? The pings are coming down from T1. They have the Ash Arrow available to try and stall. T1 are saying they do want to fight this.
Looks like they're going for a great vision here with this ward, as you can see. So Ona completely on vision right now as Chovy with the Fate sealed, now stolen away or hijacked here as that's a solar flare. It's going to connect. Great Impale as well, and I think Carrier was there for a second, but now he is just gone. So the Herald goes to Gen.G. They'll take a kill as well, and now Chovy looking for more as Faker just going to pop back to his Soul's S. Just going to body slam his way out, and Gen.G, they really are taking these skirmishes.
Gen.G's target selection in these skirmishes has been so clean every single time. One member is getting blown up in a barrage of CC as Lehens is driving. Always scary, but this time it works out for the mid lane turret. Gonna get taken low. T1 is able to defend.
Yeah, ever since Lehens got his license earlier in this tournament, he has definitely been driving a whole lot better than he was throughout the rest of this year.
We've seen some
LCK fan,
things.
you know, exactly. Very proud of him, though.
What we saw there as well for Gen.G, and it's again, I think, T1. This one a little bit more understandable, but when Gen.G have the setup, this comp is so hard to engage on. There's so much disengage, and the Skarner in particular, I think, has really been a big problem for many teams this Worlds. And even with Pays, I think his flash was forced in one of the earlier plays we saw. Didn't actually happen on screen. I think maybe when they were looking for the catch on Guma, but he was positioning so safely. There was no way to get on top of the Ziggs.
Well, now it's just Canyon and Chovy up here towards the top side of the map. 4 members of T1 in the area looking to try and push down this turret. They really want to take their second to even out the map state as far as these structures, and a teleport to come in from Pays just to make sure that they don't lose it.
See, Gen.G are playing with their advantage very strategically because T1, like, the problem with the Herald was the timing. TP wasn't quite up for Faker. He needed to get that base off, yet they still wanted to try and contest rather than go for a cross map because the bot tower had already fallen. So rather than play for something like mids, they got over ambitious and they weren't able to make it work. Then what they did was they kept the pressure up in mids. So Gen.G could secure that mid tower. They kept Pays there. He had the TP available. He then goes back to base and then TP's top. So while this Renekton is free hitting onto the bot tower, uncontested to secure that tower, they had the Ziggs TP top to then catch the wave and prevent the siege. So T1 is just losing on the map while Gen.G is continuing to gain advantages.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people have trouble liking Ziggs compositions, and I understand it's not exactly the most interactive when it comes to early game skirmishes and things like that, but what it does to a team that is very good at playing around tempo and macro that they are already good at is it's just basically a cheat code.
Well, it's as you were saying, Veddy, because even if you do try to play for mid turret, they're like, Pays can just ult the wave.
Correct,
yeah.
And Gen.G at so many of these Ziggs compositions, and it plays really well into their style, which is always trying to outtrade you. And now, what was a 1.5k gold deficit 5 minutes ago, T1's going to get this topside turret, so they're going to equalize it a little bit, but is still 1.5k gold for Gen.G and a second dragon on the way as well.
And look at the map setup as well. Like, Gen.G conceding that top side to get full vision coverage around this bot side of the map, pushing Zeus deep towards his tier 2 tower, making this very difficult for T1 to contest.
There it is.
And the Ziggs ultimate to slow down the siege. It's
Toby comes on over, he's going to be able to clear it out as well.
It's annoying. If you're T1, it's so annoying because
that's stupid Yordle.
You're trying to cross map the best that you can, and it constantly gets interrupted.
Well, Canyon looking for an opportunity here, but Zeus just going to be able to take the red buff just fine. And so there is a win for T1, but they're going to have to do something to try and grab some control back in this game, because earlier on, T1 were in the laning phase able to get a lot of decent advantages. Yes, it wasn't translating into kills, but they were able to get some extra money. Of course, Gumayushi was very far ahead, still has, I guess, a couple of minions in the lead, but he was 20 CS up earlier on. That has been evened out. And yeah, this game state is all going to come down to, I think, just where team fights will finally erupt when these teams stop just trading objectives everywhere, as Arrow is looking to connect handshake straight into it here. And I don't think this Leona is going to last very long. That is going to be T1's first kill. They're holding on to it as best they can. Faker delivered that one. Gumayushi says, you can have it, mate. Let's allow you to scale into this mid-game.
I think that's crucial as well, because Chovy has that slight advantage over Faker in terms of itemization, so funneling a bit of gold over towards Faker makes him stronger in the side lane, gets him closer to that stride breaker completion. Baron spawning him at 45, I don't think that's going to be a major point of contention this early on, but it adds that extra sense of pressure. We know T1's Barons are famous for both positive and negative reasons.
There's been a fluctuation throughout the years, yeah.
But I think at this World Championship, their Barons have been very good overall. And I think it's something that Gen.G will have to keep track of, especially after their experience against FlyQuest.
Well, Canyon, he's dashing on over. Faker, able to dash back whenever he would like to, but straight into the Impale! Another Solar Flare's going to lock down Faker, and he is likely to die. The bailout not going to work, and Chovy, yeah, he stopwatches, but now he's looking for even more. Zeus not going to get stunned up here, as Keen didn't have that off cooldown just yet, and Chovy is still smelling blood in the air. Carrier able to walk his way out, but it's another skirmish win for Gen.G.
What is Gen.G going to do with this? Faker does have TP available. It is very early, and I do agree. I don't think they can actually do this. Their damage to Baron, not nearly to what T1 would have, but it's a win when it comes to the immediate play. That's still TP invested, though, and much like the kill on Lahens, it's nice, but if they get like 2 more kills, you can probably look towards more. Instead, it's going to be TP for a kill. Gold going over to Canyon, who finally, I was going to mention, gets his first Heartsteel stacks.
There you
20 minutes into the game.
You'll love to see it.
I will say that I feel that Gen.G started off this game nervous. I felt like that there were some, like, the sense of pressure, the atmosphere, the arena. While it is excited for the matchup in and of itself, there's definitely more T1 fans here than Gen.G. And we saw some of that in the execution. But now the game slowed down a little bit. They were able to kind of play out the map. You can see the difference in confidence level, and the TP execution was the typical Gen.G that we're used to seeing. Really nice collapse from them. They did lose the mid tower, but ultimately Gen.G playing with a lot of control and confidence on the map. Their side lane setups are nice, their vision control is good, and now again, around the Baron, they're suffocating it. The good news for T1 is that, as you already said, Chronicler, they don't have a fast Baron. So T1, even if this Baron does start, we'll have plenty of time to react, even if there's not that much vision, thanks to the Ashy as well.
I think it's actually so interesting talking about lopsided crowds in this matchup especially, because Gen.G are exceptionally used to it, and not just Gen.G. You look at all of these players just in general. Keen, has he ever had a matchup where he's favored over the last 7 years?
That's fair.
Well, I don't quite remember when. He won his first LCK title only very, very recently. Chovy going to be fighting against Faker here, but I don't think there's going to be any big result, although good trade there for Faker. Chovy and Lahens got smashed by T1 in their very first final that they made it to. So they're used to it over quite a few years. And Canyon was the first one to figure out how to actually do it, you know, and then became a world champion. So getting over that hurdle has been very important for all of these players.
Yeah, T1 always has the home crowd advantage. It feels like one of the things that they are going to really struggle with, though, particularly with Zeus, I think kind of going, you know, partially AP, partially tank, but even he is not going to be that beefy. If you lose control of the map with this composition, you do have the ability to contest for vision just because you have the Ashe, but face checking is actually really hard, and many of the plays that we've seen thus far have just been Gen.G finding whoever is closest and blowing them up with this CC, as this rivalry goes a while back.
It certainly does.
It's the dawn of League of Legends, as we know it.
Because you got to remember that Gen.G, even acquiring all of the accomplishments of the former Samsung roster, right? Like, this goes way, 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 way back.
Yeah, and
back
there were
when
multiple
sister teams.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. There were multiple SKTs in the league, multiple Samsung Galaxies in the league as well. Although not necessarily Samsung Galaxy, because it was blue-white back then as well.
Atlas.
But I think we
understand
the reference. I just wanted to make sure I understood the semantics in case someone gets mad at me.
And ultimately what we're building up to, and the reason why we're focusing on all these things, is because that main course dish is arriving soon. The fourth dragon of the game is going to be starting off. I ordered a banger team fight.
Oh,
and
okay.
I'm waiting for it to be delivered.
What about a T1
the
Baron
T1
instead?
Baron, like, so smart. They see that the dragon is being started off. The Ziggs ultimate is always there. They know this has started. Let's see how Gen.G handle this cross-map pressure.
Yep, it's Chovy that's going to make his way over there first. Spotted by a T1 ward, as we can see. And there's the Mega Inferno Bomb just to guarantee that they know exactly what's going on. Teleport comes in, and yeah, there is no smite anywhere near this pit. Chovy, can you actually stop something from happening here? Is it going to be Ona that locks this one down? Ulti from Faker finds two. He's out of there immediately. Keen's able to try and chop them up. And there goes Ona, but they'll trade that any day of the week. They have the Baron buff as Carrier, able to get the handshake beautifully. His position, amazing. As Lahens is in so much trouble, Zay's going to pick it up with a body slam, and Pace is slowed down as well. They're being separated and destroyed as T1 just dance on Gen.G.
The main course has delivered as T1 smartly start off the Baron as Gen.G tried to start the Dragon. They forced Gen.G into this very difficult situation that they just couldn't answer.
As we look here, Chovy, I imagine his job is to stall for the rest of his team to arrive, but he steps too far forward. He stays alive for a lot longer than we were expecting, but it doesn't matter. That's such a big source of damage gone. And then you see, with Zeus threatening the backline, Gen.G doesn't actually have any damage. Like, Keen is trying, Kenyon's trying, but it's a Skarner and a Renekton that's getting kited away.
The resources are divided on two fronts with Zeus, putting that pressure on the mid lane. Meanwhile, Ashe is such an annoying champion for Renekton to deal with. We talked about the scaling elements, and you're starting to see them come to fruition. The first major lead of the game, while it's not represented in the gold, goes to T1.
The soul point did go to Gen.G, and that's something that they are going to try and hold on to. What can T1 get with this Baron? Bot side push is going to come through, but do remember, as long as Pace is in the lane, the wave clear is still going to be very annoying to deal with.
Yeah, especially when there's side lanes that are sort of pushing naturally towards Gen.G. You can tidy those up pretty comfortably. Right now, Gen.G doing a decent job being able to remove these minions. 5 Grubs and Baron, though. It's going to be very, very difficult to stop T1 from taking these tier 2 turrets. Is going to be their option, as now Chovy up here towards the top side of the map, fighting off against Faker, who's happy to go underneath this turret. It's so much damage.
Well, so
coming on through, and so Chovy is going to be okay, but this does not bode well. Party cast? No, it wasn't.
This is why I was a little surprised by the Sylas pick, because you kind of don't beat Yone in lane, and then you don't really beat him in a side lane either. There's this sweet spot in the mid game where you can maybe get advantages just because your skirmishing power is stronger, but right now Chovy's struggling to match that of Faker in the side, and T1 putting pressure everywhere. Tier 2 towers secured in top lane. They've transitioned over to mid. Now they have another wave in bot. Gen.G's been dragged over towards the mid lane. That tower's going to fall. Gen.G in game 1, slowly losing more and more control over the game.
3K gold lead now for T1, even though the first minute or so of the Baron, they weren't able to find anything. It's the setup afterwards. This team has perfected these Baron plays. Canyon!
Arrow going to connect. Canyon delivered. He finds an Impale, but he has no friends. The inner turret goes down. Hostile takeover to deliver Lahens, as Keen with the dominance just trying to distract them. In goes Lahens, trying to take them away from his inhibitor turret. And he's going to be separated from his body. And that's going to be a kill going over to Gumayusi. She only needed to invest a cleanse, and there are only inhibitor turrets left for Gen.G.
And T1 watch Gen.G walk into their depths again and again and say thank you very much. The inhibitors stand, but the gold lead keeps growing.
And Faker just toying with them here on this bottom side of the map. Man, it really just feels like a big swing back. So much it was give and take in this game, but now T1 are just saying that they're going to have it all.
The pick potential of this roster was something we didn't get to talk a lot about, but you can see it clear as day. The Ash Arrow into the Gragas ultimate makes it so difficult to protect the target that gets locked down. Lehen's doing what he can to try and catch Gumayushi out, but it's just not enough. And the game is quickly snowballing in favor of T1.
Yeah, Lehen's not feeling too happy about it. You can see the GOAT as well, not celebrating yet. This is game 1. 5,000 gold is the approaching gold lead for T1. They have so much map control. They should be able to deny the rest of the Dragons. They can get their ducks in a row as far as these lanes are concerned. And Gen G back out onto the map now, trying to steal away this blue buff, and they will be able to do so.
Notice on the map, though, that Faker's pushing out the top wave. Mid has kind of been sacrificed. No one is actually in a position to catch it. Carrier is the one there to try and hold the wave. Guma's going to have to go the long way round. They've gotten push in bot, which means that Chovy's going to go and answer, but ultimately the river has been conceded. Gen G have purchased over that area of the map, while Faker's remaining top has the TP available. Let's see how this one plays out.
Yeah, playing the side lanes very well is Faker, as we can see, going to immediately teleport into the mid lane as that wave crashes forward. Keen, he's got his teleport up as well, but he's going to be behind the play just a little bit. There's now Carrier looking for that opportunity. Hostile takeover, 2 seconds. Now it's back up and available. T1 are ready to fight.
Gen G can choose to give this up. T1 only have a single dragon, but it looks like they don't want to give him the opportunity, maybe feeling like in the late game they can't match. Gen G gonna try and go for a Hail Mary here.
Yep, Chovy's got a cask at the ready. It is gonna be Ona denying that soul, and now T1 starting off the fight. Can Gen G actually find an angle as hostile takeover comes in? Carrier, he's tried to bail himself out, and it's going to work for now. The Impale is good. They take down Carrier, but can they deal with the carries? That's the question. Chovy starting to pop up, and so is Gumayushi. Chovy's cut down. More arrows into his back, and he knows that it's done. Flashing forward. It's a triple for Goomer, and that should be the game.
He still hasn't died!
Oh my, 8 games in a row, I guess, gentlemen.
T1 in the final team fight of game 1 will snuff out Gen G. A full-on ace at the cost of their jungle and support. The Nexus in their eyes, 30 minutes in. T1 remain the gatekeepers of the World Finals, and they'll say you'll have to try better than that if you want to make it to London.
Nexus turret number 1, Nexus turret number 2, and T1 will take the first game in this best of 5, and we'll see whether Gen G can do better in game 2. So one of the things that I feel was missed, and there was not a lot missed from our teaser today. It was one of Phil's best things ever, but one of the things that was missed is that not only do you have to beat Faker to be the best, you always have to beat Faker to be the best. And they're not quite doing it yet. Faker still remains the GOAT, and he probably will forever. It's time for us to go to a break. When we get back, game number 2, we're gonna break down that game number 1.
Install any official LoL Esports mod from GX Store to unlock bonus content and features. Browse the collection and choose a mod. Open GX Corner and scroll to the right.
you're waiting in trepidation because T1 is clutch. T1's gonna do something, and did they?
T1 Barons!
Let's go!
When I think of this game, and when everyone thinks of this game and they're looking back, they're going to think of the big Baron. You know?
Why didn't Gen G?
Well, I mean, this was a really good call. You could see that Dragon was taken, Skarner was gone. You need to get the TP in, but Faker with this ultimate as well was clutch, and that's why it's part of the reliable Cisco network for every second counts. It was absolutely insane to see just how clean they were on this play.
And then look at the re-engage from Gen G here. They actually split. So Pays is the big damage still alive. He goes down, focusing on Zeus, while Canyon flashed the other way to get a double Skarner ult, but there's no one there to follow up on his double Skarner ult. And so then T1 can get so much out of this. It's not just a T1 like sneak Baron. It was over a 5,000 gold Baron power play with that Baron. They got all 3 of the secondary towers and more kills because of Guma's Ashe, able to hit the arrow on Canyon as he's like standing by the tower for even more gold, and it was just such a snowball.
I just think Ashe is a big pick, and maybe you should consider it instead of Renekton.
And a Gragas
Yeah, that's what I really want to bring up in that fight. Gragas is such a good pick against what Gen G want to do. It's able to split up fights. Zeus had an insane performance on that pick. It's something we saw earlier in Swiss, and I'm so happy to see him bring it out again.
Yeah, it was, and the Renekton, in comparison, was kind of useless in conclusion.
I mean, because you remember back to the early game too, the Gragas already showed up. Zeus outplay under tower during the lane swap. Got also Owner a bit ahead because he was able to get extra camps because Canyon was down there taking damage. So, yeah, really big props to Zeus again on his Gragas.
I have a surprise video for you because someone's in the crowd who wasn't entertained, apparently. Let's take a look. I think maybe they should be scared, but they're not. Oh, did I just tease it and it's not? Look at Elk. Oh, no!
The yawn!
Super cut. He's just.
Oh, my God.
No! What's up with that?
Maybe he was out last night. Who knows?
Oh, partying? Okay, I get it. It would be allowed. It would be allowed. Oh, this is not a replay, by the way. This is consecutively. Hey,
oh my God, Elk, come on.
I also,
come on, man.
I like how Bin is locked in, though.
Yeah, he's like
Bin is locked in.
laser
Well,
focused.
as we know, he loves Zeus, so he needs to
that's true.
be
He's
infatuated with his
studying.
play.
He's studying. He's like, I need to pull out the Gragas next time.
Yeah. Let's go back a little bit to the beginning of the game as well, because there were times, I guess, that T1 was in a position where they had to clutch it out later because it didn't necessarily go ideal around the Grubs or the Herald.
Yeah, and I think the second Grub fight is the most egregious one, I'll say, because there was really not a lot of reasons for them to fight over this 6th Grub. Obviously, yes, you do want to get that, but they already had the 5, and this was so easy for Gen G to just go in.
It's also that you have no smite on your jungler. Gen G have a smite, and you already had that opportunity to just push in bot because Zeus had TP'd late. So you had a ton of options there for T1, but then we come into the Rift Herald fight as well, and this was strange because you'd already had the double resets coming through from Gumayushi and Faker. They were going to be late, and to me it felt like T1 were just trying to push Gen G onto the top side of the map so they could collapse back onto mid wave and take the mid tower, but Keria oversteps and ends up getting caught out, and it completely falls apart for them.
Yeah, I felt like both of them were strange because the first one, Owner engaged onto the Leona there instead of even actually going for it, and then like you say, Carrier's just standing around, and there's a Leona with the ultimate ready, so you have to expect that the attempt for the pick is going to come through.
Yeah, and I think the big thing coming out of that is I actually did like T1's look in the early lane swap. They seem to really, really know what they wanted to do. They used the Gragas pick, to your point, Kobe, where it's so hard to dive a Gragas even super early on. And so going forward, I'm interested to see what Gen G do. This was a risk, leaving the Yone pick open, picking the Renekton over the Ashe or something similar. So we'll see.
And that's why I want to keep my eyes on Keria coming into this game. He was a monster in this early stage, constantly roaming towards Faker, leaving Gumayushi by himself, getting that early control, and Lehens needs to control him. Lehens did not do a good job in the early stages, and now coming into game number 2, he needs to step up big time. He wasn't good in the last series, and now again is struggling against Keria.
Oh, I love it that you give this directive, that you call him out. I mean, it's true because, you know, this is only a game 1 in a best of 5, but every game counts for a reason. You're going in now with more information for T1. You can be happy with what you showed. Gen G's going to be on the blue side, and it's just, it's a chink in the armor already. And the question is, can you now fight back and make sure that they don't get you to your knees?
So exciting. What an exciting start to this series. I mean, an explosive big Baron. We saw, like we say, some stumbles in the very beginning of the game. But game number 2, we'll see the adjustments as they swap sides.
Well, Atlas, will Gumayushi finally die in this game too?
I don't think so. I mean, I haven't seen anything that's going to prove that's going to happen, so I'm feeling that maybe he'll just cruise through this one as well. We'll see whether the Nexus dies, but I think that's going to go down before Guma does.
Yeah, Atlas is a fan, famously, of small sample sizes, but this we're getting up there. Okay, it's 8 games in a row now.
This is becoming a medium sample size. You know, this is getting real over here right now. So we'll just have to see. I think if T1 are going to win, it is going to be one of those games where they should be able to roll over. But I think that there's going to be a lot of adaptation moving into this Champ Select, brought to you by Omen and HyperX. As already, Gen.G once again
they've used. And some of these individual champions, they've just not looked that good. And Keen on Jax, that's great. But Canyon on Skarner, Chovy's, Ari, and Paze, even going back to summer finals, wasn't really able to have the performance that I think you ideally would be looking for. And then you have a ton of comfort for T1. I think the only thing that you lack is engage, but the counter engage and your ability to be, if you're first in an objective, to deny any area access is out this world.
I'm also kind of surprised because when we see 3 AD carry bans, like the direction that Guma's going to go is quite predictable in a sense. And it feels like that they haven't really provided a good response to this Caitlyn. I guess the idea is that they get their hands on the Jax, which sure into AD carries is good, but I think your point is so potent in this game about you are very short range into Braum, Kindred, Maokai. I'm fascinated. Like, ultimately, T1's engage is very low. It's not the strongest. You're very reliant on Maokai, maybe Sylas stealing a good ult, maybe a Skarner ultimate or a Rel ultimate to start off a fight. But I think T1 have cooked, and I like the dish that they prepared.
Yeah, no, I would agree. And I think that not having a lot of engage only matters if you lose the range battle. But I think they're doing okay in that regard.
That's true.
When that sort of is one of the concerns. And when you can throw saplings around to get as much information as possible, I mean, Zeus should be able to just face check anything that he would like later into the game because he's going to be a walking fortress. I think that once again, T1 are coming out of a draft looking really, really good. And this time it's on the red side. And Gen G fans might need to start getting nervous unless they can find some angles. But it is now time to get onto the Rift and see whether they can put their money where their mouth is as we jump into game 2.
The other thing is zone control. Caitlyn traps, Maokai saplings, as you highlighted. You said that Zeus could pretty much face check into anyone, right? Because, you know, he's Maokai, he's a tank, he can also use the saplings, a lot of safety. Good luck face checking into Braum Caitlyn. Like, that is a horrifying thing to have to face check into. And the problem is that even if Gen G is first on an objective, throw the Maokai ultimate, zone them off the objective. You then regain the space. Once you have the space, trap. Like, and now you've got to walk into us again. I think that the idea of playing around objectives, I'm going to be fascinated to see how Gen G navigate their way through that. I think flanks and vision control is going to be so important for them.
Chovy's going to have a really good laning phase for starters. Did go, by the way, Gen G loves the resolve tree, as we can see.
I mean, Chovy just loves grass.
He does love grass.
It's just another like thing that he can access some dopamine from.
Yeah, and so Chovy needs to do a good job. I also think that Keen, if he does get his matchup, should be able to get the shove. But the problem is you don't really want to 2v2 as Kaisarel into Decayed Braum. So you're incentivized to lane swap so that your bot lane can survive, but also you kind of want the Jax to match the Maokai, because Maokai early doesn't really get to do a whole lot. Looks like it is actually T1 that is going for the swap here initially, playing 2v2 mid.
You'll notice that Guma was hovering around mid for quite a while, which means that he was quite late to the top wave. On top of that, Zeus was denied from farm on the bot side of the map. So already this lane swap isn't ideal, optimal for the way in which T1 is setting themselves up for success. Carrier has been hovering around mid. He's going to get level 2 very quickly. He's already on his transition over to bot lane, knowing that, hey, if I get one more minion, I'll level over. That's fine. I don't need to take any more XP away from Faker. Jungler pathing topside, those kind of you'd expect. Oh no, which means that the threat of the dive is coming.
Yep, Carrier is going to get stunned up here by Lehans as he makes his way in. Level 2 only. Level 1 for Carrier. He's burning down. He's dead. That is going to be first blood going over to Canyon, and they'll take some plates to boot because Zeus now finds himself in a whole lot of trouble. Might have a twisted advance to try and outplay some stuff. That Arcane Smash was pretty good, or the Bramble Smash as it's known now. As Canyon underneath this turret has to flash. He's able to dodge the turret shot as a couple more autos are needed. It's Pace that locks it down, almost dies, and somehow they navigate the dive.
Game number 1, the dive of disaster. Game number 2 puts Gen G back on the right track. A kill for Pace, and so many resources for T1 going to waste.
I mean, that was perfect execution from Gen G. They punish the rotation from Carrier. They get him before he gets level 2, and then they manage the tower aggro phenomenally. This is the Gen G we were expecting.
And this is exactly the Gen G that we need to see in this game if we want it to get to a best of 3.
Which we do.
They have to start early if they want to get some of these advantages. You already said that the script is written for how fights are going to go later on in the game, and it's not very fun. if you're not on T1. So Gen.G, they have to be able to snowball this forward. We'll see what they can do, because it's not over yet. They need to get more leads.
Canyon is quite far behind in terms of camps, is the biggest downside for Gen.G. You'll notice that he's only managed to get through his bot side. Oh, flash once again from Carrier. I say again, I mean, he didn't get a chance to flash earlier, but Canyon putting pressure down, I should say, onto Carrier once again, as Faker going to be zoned away from what farm he can. He's doing a pretty good job so far in the mid lane matchup, but at the bottom of your screen, it's a suave shade of blue.
It is indeed. Gen.G finding a bunch of advantages. Excellent use of the word suave as well. Speaking of which, so was that just escape from Canyon. Decides, nope, I would prefer not to do this.
Canyon, one of the most often heard pieces of criticism for this player, which also ties into his strength, which is mid to late game impact and carry performances, is that he's not doing enough. I think this game he's overcompensating a little bit. Still sitting at 16 CS, but because of the early kill, once he picks up his camps that are going to be a decent level, should be able to very quickly catch back up in experience. And when it comes to the gold, he is still doing fine. Now, this early gold lead for Gen.G, a necessity, but good to see nonetheless. Because with how game number 1 played out, it felt like Gen.G was on track for what we've seen them do so many times, and T1 really threw them off.
And I will draw attention to our viewers who aren't as familiar with our format. Overlay, I should say. You can keep track of the Kindred stacks on the right-hand side of your screen. You can see that underneath the flash. And same for any of the stacking champions, which we don't have in this game. But,
yeah, Smolder was banned.
Yeah. Owner actually doing a decent job if we're going to compare Kindred performances that we've seen this Worlds. I think he is currently 13 minutes earlier on his first mark, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, not bad.
And didn't even need that to win the game. So that says
marks
something.
are overrated.
Yeah, we are really snowballing on the marks. If he keeps this one up, it could be
Relatively
completely
speaking.
ridiculous. Yeah, exactly.
Now, Paze has transitioned to the top side of the Rift. Guma's actually been moved over to mid. Zeus does not have the TP available. Faker has TP to top. I wonder if T1 is going to try and contest these grubs, but Faker setting up a trap.
Yeah. You've got Owner moving on over as well. Does get seen on that control ward, but finally Paze gets that information. Has to use the ulti. Chains don't land because the flash has to come out, and Paze is going to help now with these grubs. But that is not a lot of extra power here for Gen.G. Losing that flash, really important.
Pace staying alive is crucial there. Otherwise, if they get that kill, T1 can then immediately collapse. You saw the rest of the members actually making their way over, but instead it's a big win for Gen.G. They get the grubs, and as mentioned, the Maokai is always going to have a lot of impact. Faker.
Yeah, could be in some trouble here as Lahan's moving on over, finds a shattering strike. Ulti available here as Faker decides to go down, but Canyon's there to meet him. Faker now trying to change positions, but the plasma is stacked, and Paze is going to get some revenge.
And Lahan's to reposition there to deny the ability for Faker to ult out with that Kai'Sa ult.
And on top of that, Canyon using his E, not onto Faker, but in his flash path, meaning that he had nowhere to go. Nice collapse from Gen.G, and they funnel that kill onto Paze, crucially to get him further and further ahead. 2-0-0 now for the Kai'Sa, an 800 gold lead for him, and Gen.G came out the gate swinging here in Game 2.
And he's got some compound interest. That Ko is ticking away.
Yeah.
Gonna even further bolster the gold lead. And the biggest difference here has, I think, very clearly been Lahenza's impact in Game 1 versus Game 2. And then the inverse, Carrier on the Braum. It's just not really the same type of champion.
Lahan's possibly looking for a little bit more here, but only level 4, as is Carrier. The 80 carries that now actually have some levels in them, as we can see here. Some Berserker's Greaves done for Gumayushi. It's a bit of a battle towards the bottom side of the map. Zeus could be in trouble. Canyon, once again, just lawnmowing his way over. Owner going to get caught by the Brambles. Actually not, because of course there's Zeus's. I'm getting confused. Should be a jungler that has that ability. Keen jumping back though. I don't know about that one, but he has the counter-strike. Zeus now looking for an opportunity here, but Keen looks like he's out. Canyon now the one moving forward, but Owner is continuing these autos. The Dance of Arrows can get him in range as they get the Bramble Smash to slow Canyon down. Impale's going to be dodged beautifully. Counter-strike for the stun. Canyon on about 1 health, and Owner cannot dive the turret.
Not even close. Canyon holds onto his flash and makes sure that he keeps that summoner available, but what an almost turn from T1.
There seemed to be a bit of indecision on the side of Gen.G about whether or not they wanted to commit to the play. But then when they finally decided to, Ono was like, all right, fine, let's take this 2 versus 2, and you saw the power of the Kindred early on in the skirmishes. No kill ends up dropping for either side, and Keen's able to catch this massive top wave as well.
In the picture-in-picture, also, we were distracted by what was happening, but Chovy actually forced Faker's flash. I imagine went for an offensive ult play, got that summoner out, and that does mean that T1 for a possible contest on these grubs, trying to deny the Jack 6 grubs, definitely something that you want to do, but 2 crucial summoners now no longer going to be available. Keen also had to invest his flash, but Canyon still has his.
Yep. And one thing I want to draw everyone's attention to is the fact is something that we've spoken about earlier. It's a 2,000 gold lead here for Gen G. It has to be. The way team fights are going to work later in the game should be able to favor T1 if they don't fall too far behind. Right now, I think that Gen G are on pace for trying to create a snowball, but they cannot stop. Like, this is about continuing to press this advantage as much as they possibly can. First Dragon certainly going to help out with that. Next one going to be an Infernal. And Gen G just have to keep their foot on the gas.
I mean, I think it's important to realize that kind of on paper, Gen G's comp is easier to execute because it's just go forward.
Yeah.
Right? Press
go
R,
in and
engage.
kill.
Yeah, exactly. So T1 in the fights, we talked about all these tools that they have, but execution is key. Patience, kiting backwards, leveraging your range, being able to sort of circumvent your way around all of the engage that Gen G's going to have. So if they get a lead, it becomes even harder to do that, and it can look even more dominating when Gen G is just forcing all of these plays.
Yeah, the fact that 2 out of the 3 kills are on Pays as well is something that could be worrying because, yes, there's a range advantage for T1, but that reposition from the Killer Instinct can really allow Gen G, if Pays is really strong in this game, to just clean up any situation where they can get a foothold. So things could go from bad to worse very, very quickly. That's getting ahead of ourselves, though. Let's have a look at how this mid-game is going to unfold. As already Canyon getting to work, trying to lock down 6 of these grubs. On vision right now, but we can see there's Kindred in the bottom lane, so it's not likely that a contest is going to work out.
And this all comes from Chovy's prio in mid. This time around actually is able to have that very aggressive laning phase, and Faker just has to catch the wave. So I think T1 make the right call. Don't try to fight that. Instead, try to look for the cross map. Gen G with Pays and Lands arriving will be fine. I also want to highlight Owner now on 2 marks, found one on the grump in top sides. But Owner, who I think was by far the most consistent member of T1 in summer, had a little bit of a dip in playoffs, but then has been exceptional worlds again. When you think of his best champions, they're champions with really high impact, but not necessarily the carries, right? It's the Vi moments, it's the Rel from last year.
You have to cast your mind back a very long way, right? It was when he was making his names on picks like Graves that you really remember him being able to carry from the jungle role. It's not something he's a stranger to. This is maybe something he's a bit rusty on.
It's just not something, like it's not about whether or not Owner can do it, but it's about how T1 as a team functions and has over the last couple of years.
I will say that when you look at this T1 draft, it definitely isn't typical T1. Like, seeing Zeus play a full-on tank is not something that we often get to see.
Yeah.
Carrier, I always think of his supports as, I mean, he's the flashy playmaker. When he's on Braum,
we remember it, but not with a great look in our eye, you know?
So I will say that, like, this T1 composition is definitely a bit of a difference from what we normally see from them. And while we didn't see the best version of Gen G in Game 1, you have to wonder if T1 also trying something different out on the red side to see if they can catch Gen G off guard. So far in the early game, Gen G have been outperforming them in terms of the lane swap and punishing them on the side lanes. We'll see how things transition as we get into the mid game and these objectives become more important.
Yep, I think Gumayushi's positioning going to be extremely important, and the way Owner plays around the rest of his team to try and maximize these marks. Shun got to 4 stacks of the Kindred mark at 28 minutes and 42 seconds. See whether Owner can get a little bit higher than that, because it's the next few that are going to be the most important. Of course, remember guys, 4 stacks on your Kindred marks, that's when you get the big old range boost and you're feeling really good about it. But Gen G right now utilizing 6 grubs to smash down this turret. It's not a race this time. Yeah, T1 just didn't even really start.
It's also the biggest boost, and it's the only one that's actually essential. You know, everything past that is nice, but particularly, Lahens.
Yeah, possible catch here on Carrier once again. He shows them the door, but Pace says, no, I'm not going to get caught by that one. One more auto attack, but there's the Lamb's Respite, and Owner is going to be able to save Carrier. He actually walks out so that he doesn't get tagged.
I like the aggression there from Gen G. Carrier, thanks to Owner's ultimate, is able to get him away to safety, but Carrier very close to losing his life, and you can see how much control Gen G have over the map. That bottom side is just littered with wards And it just goes to show the way in which they set up the pressure onto bot, they had control over mid, transition that priority, and then they converted it into an easy objective setup. All of the early game objectives have gone the way of Gen G, and now they return their bot lane to mid, ready for the Rift Herald.
Thing that I'm looking at is still just going to be Ona. As this game goes on, you can see he's got a gigantic lead as far as farm is concerned, but it is still Canyon. With these early kills, with the amount of objectives that they've been able to lock down, does have a slight gold advantage, but it is very, very slight. And Ona is a large proponent of where the damage is going to come from in this game from T1. And as that range increases, his lethality will increase as well. Not the stat, just in general. It's an awkward word to use in League of Legends. I apologize, but that's going to be Rift Herald going on over to Gen G as well. A monopoly on these objectives so far in this game as Kerry is flashing on over. Lehens could be in trouble. Shattering Strike going to hold him in place as Faker wants to be able to get a piece of this. He's not going to get the kill. That's going to go to Ona, as T1 do manage to get their first kill of the game.
Really nicely done there by T1. So Gen G started up the Herald as a hold that fought. We might have a collapse imminent here.
Yeah, you've got Zeus throwing down the Nature's Grasp, looking to try and catch them in place, but Gen G, they just exit. They just
leave.
The move to the left. I like the approach.
Not too bothered there. Keen will get the turret though. But T1 there identified we can't really fight for the Herald. And Chovy was alone in bot lane. So they read the play. Lehens actually trying to cover for Chovy, but gets caught mid-rotation. It's going to be the Grubs and the Herald going over to Gen G, but the second Dragon of the game.
Oh! Okay, he just wanders on in there. He'll flash away, so they at least get that. Faker also taking the outer turret on the bottom side, but that is so big. And now it's Hextech Soul this game.
Ona didn't have Smite, and the only way that Canyon knew was because he saw the W from Paze go over the wall. He saw the HP. It didn't get smited, and so he's like, wait, I think there's an angle
Something's
here.
fishy, yeah.
And so he just went for it. Beautiful play from Canyon. Great read from him. The Herald gets dropped in mid. And the player that we haven't talked about, but is getting monstrously scary, is Keen in the top lane. He secured a full tower on the top side, uncontested. He's almost got a 1k gold lead. That Trinity Force is on the horizon. And we talked about it in the draft, right? Into double AD carry, even into a Silas. This Jax is not really going to be afraid of anyone on the side lane. The Maokai is just going to do his best to hold him off.
Yep, it's going to be about how well T1 just holds Keen at bay and tries to bide their time. But as the game stands right now, it is not looking good because this snowball is a-rolling. Gen G are capitalizing. But it's only 2.5k, something like that as far as gold lead is concerned. 6 Grubs and 2 Dragons are what they get for it, though, which is still very, very valuable, especially with the Soul being this Hextech.
In game number 1, T1 found the one win the way of the Barnacle, and it was a weird moment because it felt like Gen G was aware of it, yet still underestimated it. It brought them back in the game, and I think they're going to need a similar moment here because, as mentioned, this composition is really going to struggle as long as Gen G has that map control. Gen G is now the one that keeps shoving out the waves, keep having prio on the vision, and it is quite hard for T1 to find a good snap engage. They have a ton of CC once you actually get on top of them, but you don't have something like the Rel, like the Leona, like the Vi to really start off a team fight when Gen G isn't ready.
Well, we talked about how Gen G, if they start off an objective, T1 actually have a lot of ways to gain access onto the objective, even if they don't have the best engage, simply due to the fact that they have a Caitlyn plus the Maokai ultimate. But ideally, they're on the objective first. They have position with the Caitlyn traps. They're forcing the enemy to face check into their Braum, into their saplings. But T1 are never being given that opportunity, thanks to how well Gen G is snowballing this early game. They have a 3k gold lead. They're playing around their side lanes incredibly well. They've got a 4-1 setup right now. Faker's in top lane catching another wave. And Gen G are just very methodically suffocating T1 out of the map.
Yep, pulling them around, as you can see, moving over towards his inner turret in the mid lane. Ace in the hole does go down, fair bit of damage onto Lehens. Decent knock up there, but Carrier had to invest the ultimate just to get them away from this turret. It's just Gen G trading up at this point in the game.
The turret stands though. Main thing for T1 is to not lose too much of that map control. You see them still moving around as a 5-man unit, maybe looking for some stragglers. Looking at the item finishes though, because of the gold leads afforded to Gen G. Pays already on 2 items, and let's not forget this Kai'Sa. It's only going to get worse from free items onwards. When you get your revolves, when you're able to be a threat both as a poke champion as well as when you dive into the backline. As you mentioned, Vedi, I actually think there's a small window where the Maokai is like tanky enough to kind of deal with the Jax.
Sure.
But once Triforce is done, it gets a whole lot harder. And in a team fight, he'll be able to, but in the side lane, getting to match is going to be very, very hard.
And we need to talk about our Mercedes-Benz features matchup. You mentioned it already on the PaY's side, but Gumayusi is about to hit that trough. This is where he's going to have to dig deep and make sure he continues on that streak of his, because Infinity Edge is necessary. That 2-item spike, it feels better than it used to, but definitely wants 3 items, 4 items, needs armor penetration, Infinity Edge, and then he feels a whole lot better. It doesn't get better all that soon here for T1 in this game.
What you see though, T1 have been in this position before. They're trying to look for these small catches inside, as Zeus could be in big trouble here.
Yeah, it does have a sapling in position, actually a bit lazy.
Has not enough damage. Yeah,
not going to actually spot him. So yeah, Canyon versus Zeus would take a while, to say the least.
So right now, T1, I wonder if they even feel strong enough to contest the next dragon. They're setting up on the top side of the map. Vision is spotting them out completely. His owner is walking over wards right now, going to clear those out. Chovy respects the fact that he is on the weak side of the map as Lehens makes his way up towards the top side. Keen continues to push in the bot wave. It looks like he's heading towards a Starak second, which to me, that's kind of the break point for Jax when he's got the Trinity Force and the Starax. He just becomes this really difficult to kill bruiser.
Yep, and I was actually going to say, if this was the Infinity Edge back for Gumayusi, then maybe there's an opportunity somewhere. He's not quite there, sitting on the pickaxe and the BF sword as the Baron is about to spawn. 10 seconds until that dragon. Is good sidestep there from Lehens. It was just going to be some support combat.
This is Gen G dealing with the fallout and trauma of last game. Look at the amount of vision control set up as they are heading towards this for a dragon. This time around, no opportunity. And T1's Baron damage is so much worse. Last time, they had an incredibly quick Baron. This time, that's not really going to be the case.
Yep. T1 not going to be able to get on over there. I think as soon as everyone saw that those timers were matched up, they were like, oh, T1's going to try for it. Gen G, of course, saw as well, and so they were able to stop that one from happening, only investing the limited resources to lock down Soul Point for themselves, continuing that monopoly on the neutral objectives. And this is really looking good for Gen G here in game number 2, which, if you're a fan of 5-game series, is pretty good.
It's, I mean, if you're ever interested in getting into super high-level league, both of these teams showcase through game 1 and game 2 how important the early game can be and how effectively you can snowball from that point depending on the strengths of your champions, because both teams have throughout this series demonstrated an effective way of how to play through that strength and snowball effectively. It's been a beauty to watch. It is a low kill game, but the map control, the decisions that Gen G have made, the tactical decisions and the execution has been near flawless, and it's resulted in a 3K gold lead 20 minutes in.
Many have credited one of Gen G's current coaching staff for being one of the original reasons why Vision in League of Legends got changed for exactly these type of games. And if you think the map is lit up now, go back, watch some old VODs.
I mean, Europe is very fond of when they nerf that, okay?
Yeah, let's have a conversation about control wards and how much they're bought and stuff like that. I think that's a good idea.
And knowing T1, what they're going to look for now is a quote-unquote, oh no, someone's caught in the side lane, followed by an immediate fight and an immediate collapse. They have dispatched of many teams when they were feeling like they were in a position of power. The problem is that generally Gen G doesn't really bite. They just let you play it out, keep their patience. It's the way they love to play, particularly when they are looking great on their carries, like in this game.
Crucially, T1's waiting for those spikes, and I believe Guma's about 200, about 100 gold off, so he needs another wave. He's waiting for that wave to be pushed in. The question is, can it? Well, he's going to get it in time, because the next dragon's in 3 minutes, and I feel like Gen G's not the time to just sporadically force this Baron now. I mean, they could. It's a great window for them to do it, but Malignance is almost done for Chovy. I imagine he wants to get that finished before anything comes through. The Sun and Sky actually going to be the itemization from Keen, also something we've been seeing from him, and then it goes into the Zhonya's third, which is also a very effective tool. So a lot of damage for this Jax in a side lane. Does make him a little squishier. So
feels like the 1v1 build.
Yeah.
Not going for that Sterk. So Keen going
also
to be
big
committing.
murder AD carry build.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yes. And there is a couple of those.
Yes.
So it's got some options.
It's also the role kind of changes, because in longer fights, if you can get the proc of the Sundered Sky on multiple people, it actually adds to your stim. As you're saying, Vedi, if he does get focused, with Sterx, you can get away from some really, really rough situations. Not really going to have the same level of playmaking as the Brandwin's now done for Canyon. Going to get so much value out of that. Steel caps on him as well. And I can guarantee you, Faker is not really interested in trying to kill a Skarner. But for the 80 carries, it's going to be quite tough.
I think Pays might be mega close to his Nashes. Does
Should
he have
be,
it
yeah.
yet?
Pretty close is now Carrier gonna have to flash, get out of the way of Canyon.
All right,
striding
so
with a purpose, and that could be important moving forward because we know that Carrier loves to play engage Braum. We don't like looking at it necessarily, but now without flash, he's definitely not going to be able to utilize it. So Gen.G, they have so much control of the tempo of this game. As Lahen's gonna have to crash away from this one. T1 just attempting to bully them out of the river. Canyon moves on over and says no.
Item-wise, we're about as good as we're going to get, right? Both these teams should sit there and say, all right, Guma would love another item. He's not getting it. The Soul is spawning in about a minute's time. There will be nothing that he can buy in that window to be able to really be much stronger.
T1's not buying it.
What is Zeus
They're
up
like,
to?
you're not going for this.
Well, we'll see what they can actually get done here as it's going to be Carrier blowing up like a balloon.
They were not!
Yeah.
They were not doing it!
No. They did not want to, and now Gen.G might be able to just head over towards this Baron and try and take that one down. Chovy still with that Spirit Rush running. Faker able to dodge out of the way.
Keen.
Oh god, this flank angle is absolutely terrifying. Of course, all of the things about T1's team fight still kind of stand, but without the Braum, that's a big piece of that puzzle missing. We'll see what they're able to do here as the nature is grasping. Does manage to stun up Canyon. He can get over that wall pretty comfortably as now they've just singled out Zeus. So much damage. Lahens takes the kill. And T1, they had the trap set up, but Gen.G don't want to go there. As now Ona trying to dash back. Keen says, no, I'm going to buy time for my teammates as Carrier comes over. The Winter's Bite does nothing, and Keen, he just wants to fight again. They'll take the Baron, and Keen gets back into position. And now Canyon is just crashing into them. The two-man impale as well. And Gen.G will destroy the Baron, destroy the team fight, and I think they're looking for the game. Gumayushi is not going to stay undying this Worlds.
It is a systematic dissection of T1. One by one they fall, one by one the objectives follow. Gen.G, calm, calculated, just eviscerate T1.
Oh, and that's straight into Soul as well.
The Nexus might not fall, but this game really should be over. Baron here for Gen.G. Hextech Soul on top of it. And let's be fair, this is what we all wanted.
Oh, yeah. And this is beautiful execution of this draft as well, from Gen.G start to finish. As you can see, T1, 4 versus 5, desperation. But they knew if they let this Baron go, they're just going to slowly but surely lose the game.
What's crucial here is Gen.G giving absolutely no window to flip the game. With Kindred in particular, it's so easy to get over the wall, and we see that he is just being systematically denied access, and the Keen value, this Jax does so much into these 80 carries, they just can't deal with him.
I think that Keen is the biggest factor here.
Oh,
him
100%.
just standing there, it's kind of like his aura is saying,
He's
try
menacing!
me, you know? And the problem is when you lose that Braum, you lose a crucial part of your front line. So there's no way for them to approach.
He's stressed out, man. Always fantastic to check out the Gen.G coaching stuff, but like you say, once again, back in position. Keen with the Counter-Strike now on cooldown, but Gumayushi, oh my god. That was insane damage. We've also now got a Seeker's Arm Guard on Pays. They really want to finish this game right here, right now. Look at that, another Void Seeker going to connect. And Zap onto that Caitlyn. They can't walk up. Like, how are they supposed to stop this freight train from crashing into their base? Gen.G have taken 2 inhibitors in a matter of seconds. It's a 10,000 gold lead plus here with this Hextech Soul, and T1 once again throwing out some grasping nature. They try to line up behind their tank, and it is absolutely working. Pays is indeed unstoppable as Carrier goes down. The Killer Instinct is named well as Zeus is his second one. The Lambs Respite going to keep them alive for now, but who's it healing? It's only healing Gen.G as they move to 1-1 in this series.
I like the idea of T1's composition, but in practice, the way in which Gen.G executed the lane swap, the way that they punished T1 in the early game, and then they just dismantled them from start to finish, objective control, the team fights. I mean, this is the series that we want.
Yeah, this is what we wanted.
And the impact of Lahens night and day between that game 1 and 2, and I think whichever support is going to have more impact is going to keep looking better and better in this series.
And what this series has so far been about is execution of your game plan from the draft. And so far it's been beautiful for both winners. Time for us to go to a break. When we get back, we'll see what they have cooked for us in Game 3.
The Grubs and the Herald going over to Gen G, but the second Dragon of the game.
Oh, okay. He just wanders on in there. Take the Baron, and Key gets back into position. And now Canyon is just crashing into them. The two-man impale as well. And Gen G will destroy the Baron. The Killer Instinct is named well as theirs is his second one. The Lazarus fight going to keep them alive for now, but who's it healing? It's only healing Gen G as they move to 1-1 in this series.
Gen G saying, you thought this was Worlds? No, this is the LCK, and we'll bring you back down to earth by beating you the most exceptional way we know how, by macroing you until you fall asleep.
Hey, I loved that game. I'm also 10th